for us, the main milestone was when we started working with Paris Saint-Germain in 2015. Okay, we sent 3 coaches. Romagosa was the methodology director. We were there for 4 years, 96 million euros selling youth players.
Yeah,
like the biggest achievement that we had, right? Funding all over the world, doing coaching education as well, and on the other hand, individually with the players, try to help them improving game understanding. What I normally look for is how is organized the academy. The academy needs to be very linked. The people is only seeing the peak of the iceberg, right? And this is the performance of the national teams. But then below the sea level of the iceberg, there are a lot of things that you need to work on. Club licenses, coaching education, grassroots, women's football, everything. And once that you are working on this, hopefully the peak of the iceberg is going to be successful as well.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Andrew, and today our guest is Aitor Orive Arroyo, calling to us from the Basque Country, Vitoria, in the north of Spain. Aitor is the international project member for Soccer Services Barcelona. We're very happy to have him here today. So, Aitor, bienvenidos and welcome.
Muchas gracias, Andrew. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So let's have fun and let's talk about football.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So Soccer Services Barcelona, you guys have this econo method that you have developed. Tell us a little bit about the history of the organization and kind of what this is and where it comes from.
We are a football consultancy, yes, based in Barcelona. We're Spanish. Carles Romagosa and David Hernandez, they were the founders of the econo method, right? Carles, he was coach in La Masia in Barcelona. Mm-hmm. Then he was also as working on PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, Thailand FA, and so on. David, he was also working in Paris Saint-Germain as well, and with Japan FA and so on. They created a method, and then they started working, with players and so on, and they create the company, Soccer Services Barcelona. So in brief, we're a football consultancy. Our main target is working with football clubs, professional football clubs, and FAs all over the world to help them to create methodology departments, create club identity, in brief, to improve their performance, right? Also, we're working with coaches as well, doing coaching education, helping these coaches to improve their knowledge, right? And also individually with players. Yes. So
okay,
that's it.
Brilliant.
I'm in charge of the international projects. Yes. And it's like more than 6 years ago since I started working with them.
Okay, brilliant. So just to recap and to explain to everyone, if they're not sure, La Masia is the name for the Academy of FC Barcelona, right? Who, if you look in the last 20 years, 25 years, have produced a significant portion of some of the greatest, the most elite players in the world. First and foremost, Leo Messi, obviously, Xavi, Iniesta, Piqué, Fabregas. Like, there's going to be dozens that I can't mention because we don't have time, and then have developed a method of working with players and coaches. So you guys are consultants on the technical side of the club, right? Of helping that on-field performance.
Yes, as you said, Carles, while he was working in La Masia, he was a coach of Cesc Fabregas, Jordi Alba, and Carles Puyol. Yes. So he started working with them individually. Our method is very focused on game understanding and perception. Yes. So every time that we're working with individual players, because we do this, we're helping players doing video analysis. Players such as Christian Pulisic, for example, or Cesc Fabregas on that times, Irene Paredes in women's football, Andy Sullivan, the U.S. national team women's player as well. Yeah. We're always focusing on perception and game understanding. Yes. This is the main focus of the econo method. How you can become a smart player.
Within your role as international project manager, you're trying to build these relationships and partnerships with clubs, leagues, FAs, national organizations as well, to be able to help develop their players, develop their coaches. So tell us a little bit about your personal story.
6 years ago, when I moved to China, right, I started working Spanish embassy, nothing to do related with football, yes. But then, as I'm a football lover, I was a coach here in the Basque Country. On that time, 2018, China was the president of China was crazy about football, right? Their football was mandatory at the schools. It was an amazing football atmosphere there in China. So I started making some connections, right, with Spanish clubs or La Liga, And it was in a football congress close to Hong Kong called Soccer, where I met my company, Soccer Services Barcelona. They were there because we have a lot of projects in Japan, Thailand, Indonesia, and Asia.
Right.
Were quite well known. So that was my first approach to them. When I moved back to Spain, they called me. They were looking for a project manager. Of course, as I'm a football lover, I said yes.
And I'm curious on a personal side, what made you interested to take that change to go to China, to be a part of working with the embassy, developing those like relationship and communication and cultural skills? So like, what was kind of that first motivation to take that opportunity?
So this was thanks to internship. And to be honest, I wanted to work in football, and I was thinking of moving to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, just to,
Okay. A little
asados,
different from China.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
not speaking in English, just everything in Spanish, going to Boca
Hmm.
Juniors, River Plate matches, enjoying football and
Exactly.
having lunch. But then I realized that China was the main market at that time because, as I said before, the football was crazy. So that's why I decided to go to China. I didn't know anything about talking Chinese or Chinese culture, anything. I will say that thanks to that experience in China, I'm nowadays working in football.
Brilliant. So cool. And tell us about the projects that you're doing, obviously doing coach education, you work even with individual professional players, but not only working within Asia and obviously originally from Europe and in that area, but now trying to come into the United States.
Yeah, moving back some years back, yes, for us, the main milestone was when we started working with Paris Saint-Germain in 2015. Yes, they trusted in us. Okay, we sent 3 coaches to the club. Carles Romagosa was the methodology director,
Mhm.
David Hernandez, the academy director, and Fran Rubio as a head coach of the under 19 team. Yes, we were there for 4 years. The academy of Paris Saint Germain grew a lot, they improved a lot. They earned like 96 million euros selling youth players.
Yeah.
So that was the like the biggest achievement that we had, right? Afterwards, the club said, okay, look, if Paris Saint Germain is trusting in econo method, why don't we trust in them, right? So then we start expanding all over the world, yes, especially in Asia, where we're working in Japan and Thailand for a long time ago. But of course, the US is one of the main markets nowadays. The football there is growing up quite a lot. It's developing the youth academies and so on. So we put
Yeah.
a focus there in American market. Um, we had quite good connection with San Jose Earthquakes because Alex Covelo was there as an assistant coach, then as a head coach, and Alex is one friend of us. So that
Okay.
was the first approach on the US market, yes. And since 2 years ago, we started working with Bethesda SC. Yes, it's a big academy there based in Maryland, in Baltimore.
Maryland. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So nowadays we're working with them. We're collaborating with them. We had an Icono coach based in Maryland. Yes, he's the head coach for the MLS Next team that they have.
Okay.
And also we are doing some clinics, some camps with them, and so on. That's in Maryland, Baltimore. We're also doing Icono camps in Texas. Yes, on the south of Texas. So this is what we're doing nowadays. Okay, our objective is trying to do more and more things in the US market because it's huge.
Hmm.
Uh, for us, it's good as well to be working with Christian Pulisic, with Andy Sullivan, with Luca de la Torre, these quite successful American players to
Yeah.
gain credibility, right? So for the next years, our goals is growing up there with Bethesda. This year, 2025, we're planning to have like 3 4 teams coming to Spain to compete in international tournaments here.
Very
Us
cool.
also going there to do more camps, more tryouts, and so on. So, in brief, the US is, of course, one of the main markets in the world to be focused on football, right? And our idea is doing more and more stuff there.
Brilliant. And so it's interesting when you're mentioning like the different projects that you've been involved in. There's some at the professional level, at like national FA level, even like high level professional academies. But it sounds like too with a lot of the projects in the US, like with Bethesda, for example, it's still an elite level, but it's more like youth. So what do you think is is the Econo method able to offer that does appear as kind of like an added value that is maybe a new perspective that, because Bethesda's always been a big club, obviously with clubs coming in like DC United and even like Philadelphia Union, to an example, like they've become bigger because they're MLS, but Bethesda's still always been top club and can attract very good coaches and things. So what is it that Econo is able to offer specifically at that youth level that is able to give an advantage, that's able to give more of a benefit to the club and the coaches, but also, of course, the players?
Yeah. It's true that in Bethesda, when we arrived there, they have a great structure. It was well organized. The level of the coaches was good as well. But we really believe that our method, our company, is very useful to create kind of pathway, from the lowest team to the top team, and on the academies and also on the professional teams, right? This is something that we are trying to develop in all the clubs that we are working with. Trying to create, first of all, a club identity. Yes, they need to have a very concrete strategy, how we want to be shown in 3, 4, 5 years ago, years, yes.
Yeah.
So this is why we try to create a pathway, yes, having quite similar game model, having all the coaches with the same vision and so on. So in Bethesda, we are focusing on that. Of course, we're also focusing on developing the level of the players. They are good enough, but they still need to keep on working on perception and game understanding. Yes, so that's how we can help them in general, right? On one hand, doing coaching education as well, trying to get all the coaches known how to design good training tasks, how to do good training planifications, how to create a pathway on their academy, and so on. And on the other hand, individually with the players, try to help them improving game understanding. Yes.
Okay, brilliant. And so it sounds like within that type of pathway, then you're working with, coaches within the club, obviously then the past one, the players, but you've also started to do some coaching education and courses and licenses like independently, right? So if there's a coach listening, and it's obviously harder to say, hey, like come work with my club or develop us here or build a partnership, but individual coaches are able to kind of learn this Econo method, which has been proven around the world as well. Could you tell me about some of those newer projects you started?
Yeah, exactly. We are doing coaching education since 10, 15 years ago. Yes, we're expert on that. We're mainly focusing on methodology, right? Training methodology, but we also have different kind of courses. In the end, we are a consultancy, so we can tailor make any kind of education, adjusted to what the coaches, the group of coaches, or the clubs wants to listen to, right? But yes, as you said, on one hand, we have an Econo Coaches Academy. Yes, this is an online platform where coaches can enroll, and they will have every week new materials, new webinars, recorded webinars, a lot of activities, and so on. So they can enroll then in the Econo Coaches Academy and try to learn more about us. But on the other hand, we're also doing, as you said, educations, open educations. So it's not just us going to the club and doing an education for that club, but also individually for coaches. Yes. Last week, we had a group of 20 coaches coming to Barcelona for a week. Yes. 3 of them, if I'm not wrong, they were coming from the US. Okay. And here in Barcelona, we did the first Econo coaching development tour, where in the mornings we have some theoretical sessions and practical sessions, and on the afternoon we were working to do club visits. Yeah, we went one afternoon to see Girona, one whole day Villarreal.
Cool.
Just to have different insights and see how clubs are applying their methodology. So answering your question, yes, we are not only doing education for clubs or FAs, we can also do educations for a group of coaches or individuals.
Amazing. And I'm curious, like so we have the option for coaches to go to Barcelona to do, like a residential course and learn the Econo method. We have the online ones as well, and it's quite quite global as far as the group of coaches you're pulling from. I'm curious too, like with the online one, is that all in English? Do you have some that are just Spanish? How accessible is it for people?
It's crazy because we are Spanish, but all our
Yeah.
materials and all our webinars are in English. Everything is in
Okay.
English. In Japanese and Chinese as well. Okay, but that's for
Okay,
Japan and
gotcha.
China.
So yes, right. Okay, so depending who's listening, those are your options. So that's good to know, and just wanted to kind of clarify that in case there are people listening, like, hey, I'd love to do it, but my Spanish isn't quite the level. So really cool.
Everything is in English.
So I know that within Soccer Services, right, when you guys are delivering the Econo method, a lot of that sounds like it's, there's a lot of it on the field, right? Like in the training session where you're supporting coaches and obviously working directly with players. Then there's some of that office work of like creating that vision, the pathway for the club too. And that's when we get into more like the technical development of players, like of their skill and things like that, and tactical decision making. For your role as an international project manager, it seems like you're more of like behind the scenes, creating the opportunity, like setting the stage for all this to happen. So what are some of the typical aspects of your role when you're working with these various partners and stakeholder organizations?
Okay, that's a good question. It's challenging. Okay, it's true that normally we're focusing on markets where football is still not so good. I mean, the football level needs to be improved. Yes,
Right.
that's why
Developing still.
we're not working in Spain. We're not working in the UK. Okay, because they had a good methodology structure, a methodology department, the academy directors. They have everything well organized, right? So that's these last 2 weeks I've been in Indonesia, for example. Then we can talk about more about this project in Indonesia. But there, my main role is trying to identify the necessities of the clubs. Yes, and normally they have quite a lot of necessities. Yes, they have a goal, a vision, right? For example, I want to have one professional player playing in Europe on the next 2 years. Okay, that's a goal. Yes, but you need to create a strategy to achieve that goal, right? So my role is identifying these necessities, and then I'm not a coach, so then I need to come back to Barcelona, meet the technical department, and see which processes, which steps we can do it to achieve that goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So mainly, I'm traveling all over the world, meeting technical directors, meeting presidents, meeting coaches, try to identify their necessities, and then offering them a proposal with some solutions to that.
Very cool. And that's interesting because you're reporting back to and I'm going to use the word technical, but, and for some coaches listening, like when we think of technical, sometimes it is like the physical skill work, like if we're talking about technical development of players. But in this sense, I'm just trying to say like the actual knowledge and expertise of the coaching itself, right? So like the technical leadership within a club versus like the sales department and the marketing, all of that, right? So you're kind of in that project manager role, and you have to report back to the coaches, right? The ones with that coaching expertise. So what do they want to know? Like what kind of things are you looking for? And I'm curious too, because you coached as well, but obviously might not have the same background of coaching as Carlos and some of the other guys that you're working with. So like how did you kind of develop that eye or that way of understanding, like, okay, they're going to want to know this, that, and the other thing, and understanding each partner that you're working with?
Okay. Yes, you said. So I could give them an answer. Yes, that on the meeting, if I'm in Indonesia and they have one very clear necessity, I can give them an answer, but it's not going to be the best one. I know something about football. I prefer taking this idea, coming back to Barcelona, putting on the table, yes, and trying to create a good solution. So yeah, that's why I prefer doing like that, because here in Barcelona, just to understand, we have a lot of coaches all over the world. Yes, in any project that we have in Japan, in the
Mm-hmm.
US, Iran, we have coaches there. But in Barcelona, we have what we call Econo Engine. Yes, it's a group of coaches which is based in Barcelona, giving support to all the coaches all over the world.
Okay.
So that's why I prefer bringing the idea here, putting it on the table, discussing all together. So then they can give me like a very concrete solution and a process, and then they can deliver this solution to the teams.
Very cool. Very cool. And so are you looking for things like, okay, maybe there's a club and they only have like an under 17 and under 19 youth teams, right? Or that on the opposite end, they do have their own grassroots programs that they build up, or is it like the number of staff? Is it their facilities and maybe data, like technology they're already using? Like, are they getting video? Are they using monitors for GPS trackers? Like, what are some of the specific things, that you're generally looking for, or does it vary, like depending on the situation?
Yes. So what I normally look for is how is organized the academy, right? Like the grassroots, because normally the first team and the academy, they are not very well linked, but it can be that can be okay. But then the academy needs to be very linked. So one of my main questions is that how is organized your academy? How many teams they have? How many age groups? Are they linked, or are they, like on different ways? The coaches don't even know what they are training and so on. Which is the staff? How many staff you have on each age group? Which is the level of education of this staff? Are they playing on the same game model or not? Do you have a clear club identity or not? These kind of questions are very important to, to think about that.
Sure.
Because then you will have a very clear answers, and you will see which necessities they have. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, because you've had experience in so many different cultures, right? And maybe some places come and say, oh yeah, we have a club identity, it's this. And then after 3 months, your coach is there and there's like, what is happening, right? Or so I imagine it's a lot of relationships too, right? Of building that. Because even coaching the players, like, yes, the Econo method is important as a philosophy, but if the players don't trust the coach, right? If they don't have a relationship with the coach, they're maybe only going to get 10% of that learning, right? Versus, a better like social, emotional environment. So I'm curious, like how your coaches try to navigate some of those cultural aspects.
We said one of our slogans is trust the process. Okay, you need to trust on the process. It's a medium long term process, creating an identity, creating a well organized team. Okay, I was living in China, as I said before. At that time, that was crazy because the clubs didn't have any kind of strategy, right? Club identity. They was only looking for a short term. They want to win the next match, and if not, they want to win the next one. So if the head coach is not working, let's fire him and take another one. And maybe the game model is totally different.
Yeah.
We prefer and we believe that you need to have a very clear strategy. Okay, this is our identity. This is how we want to play. If we are trusting on that process, and if we are trusting on the idea, then it doesn't matter if we're losing one match or two, or if the players are not thinking on, and this is not the way. We need to believe on that, and we need to keep working on that. Yes, because it's going to be a medium or long-term process.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a simple solution, right? But it's not easy. It requires patience, probably, right? Like you said, that trust, that belief in what you're doing. And when you say like medium to longer term, what is generally a period of time that you're partnering with an organization or with the club? What's the average versus like what is kind of the ideal or the preferred, like for you guys to really feel comfortable, to feel confident that like, yes, we can actually achieve what we're telling you in this period of time?
I would say from 3 to 5 years, no more than 5 years. Okay, because we want to be there. Okay, that's why we're traveling to the club. We are one more of the staff. But after 5 years, if they still need us to be there, it's because we are doing something wrong. Okay, our idea is going there, trying to help them to develop this identity. Okay, we are not going there to see, okay, look, you want to play like this. No. They will decide that, yes, and we will help them to create some processes, to work on that processes, and try to get the idea. After 3, 4, 5 years, they need to be the ones leading these processes, not us. Okay, if they still need us, it's because we are doing something wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
Our idea is
Yeah.
trying to help them understanding these processes, and afterwards they can do it by themselves.
The interesting thing that comes to my mind when I hear that, Aitor, is that it's an interesting business model, because for a typical business, it's like you want to have a client forever. You want to have revenue. You want to have that income forever, right? But for you guys, you're saying that a successful project, when you've achieved and you've delivered what you've promised, you're saying ciao after 3 to 5 years. So it's yeah, I think it's quite insightful that is kind of the vision that you guys have.
I mean, we need to be honest with the customers, and we want to feel useful, not useless. So after 5 years, we believe that they need to know everything that we are trying to explain to them. So that's the time to say goodbye, okay? And then hopefully there's gonna be another opportunity in that market, because we will have real success cases, right, on that market. So maybe later on we can go to another club, to another market close to this one, and so on. Because in the end, we are not a big company. We know that we cannot fight, we cannot compete against Barça or Real Madrid or any La Liga club, right? We need to work hard. We really believe that our method and our way of working is it's good. It's the best one, right? To help academies and clubs developing. But we need to be honest with the customers, very hardworking as well, and trying to have this kind of connection with them. Yes, they need to trust in us.
And so, speaking of a 3 to 5 year project, you're just starting a new one in Indonesia, right? I saw some photos on LinkedIn, and you're meeting a lot with the big clubs there. So could you give us a little summary of what Soccer Services is doing with the Econo method in Indonesia?
This, to be honest, is one of the biggest projects that we had in the last, I would say, 5-6 years after the one that we had in Thailand FA. Yes, we're working with Indonesian League, which is called LIB. Yes, so our customer is the Indonesian League. And the main goal of this project is developing youth players. Yes, they want to develop the grassroots and trying to get the under 16, under 14 players the best as possible. So for this project, which is signed for 3 years, yes, once again, no more than 3 years, okay?
Sure.
We're working with the best under 16s of the 18 teams of first division, right? So they selected for us the best 3 under 16 players of each team, in total 54. And during the season, we're working with them remotely. Yes, we're doing some individual reports for them. We're analyzing them, we're identifying which things they need to improve. And we're traveling twice per season to Indonesia with 3 different coaches. We have one Econo coach based in Jakarta the whole season, but then 2 coaches, they are traveling to Jakarta to visit all the clubs, to present these reports, to train on field with these players, and to do coaching education as well to the different coaches. Yes.
Okay.
In the end of this project, we're selecting the best 18 players, the best one of each club, and they are coming to Spain for 2 weeks. Okay. This is going to be on the first 2 weeks of March. They will be coming to Spain, and they will train with different La Liga clubs. Yes, just to have a different vision, because they're in Indonesia.
And the exposure, right? Exactly. They're the best there. So can they get exposed to higher competition and get challenged more? Absolutely.
That's it. And the coaches will be also coming as well. So the coaches, they will stay in Barcelona for 2 weeks, and we will deliver to them some coaching education, club visits, and so on.
Cool.
And the players would be divided on different La Liga clubs for 2 weeks, training with them, seeing how is competing and training here in Spain, which is going to be totally different than as in Indonesia. And in the end, having an international experience, which we believe that is going to be very useful for their development.
Okay, very cool. So the idea then is, the league itself, so not the FA, right? So the league itself as an entity just wants to develop some of their youth players to be higher quality. And I'm curious from from your time there already in Indonesia, what's something, because the average person, even me with an interest, I lived I'm in Thailand right now, but I lived here for 2 years and have been interested in football in Southeast Asia, but I really don't know too much about Indonesia in general. So I'm sure the average person listening is pretty clueless. So what could you share about, some of the current strengths or challenges of football in Indonesia at this time?
Okay, well, we saw. I've been 3 times this year in Indonesia. I travel with the coaches these 2 times, plus the first one that I went to, to sign the contract. We saw that there are some very talented players there in Indonesia, but they are very lack of game understanding. Yes. So they are very talented. They have talent. They are fast. They are big. But then they don't need how to. They don't know how to be on the field. So this is the main challenge: trying to help them improving the game understanding. Okay. Then also coaches. There are some coaches that they are good enough to develop this kind of processes, right? But some others they need to improve. Okay. And of course, one big challenge in Indonesia as well is that the country is huge. It's huge.
It's huge.
So
Yeah.
you have different clubs on different regions. Even the time difference it's big as well. So each club is totally different to the others. So this means that it's going to be difficult to organize the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're working with them. We believe that we can do a very good job there because there is a lot of job to do. Yes, but they have the talent. They have the materials to be a good players, and Indonesia as well. It has the capacity to become a very good national team. Now they are on the final round of trying to qualify to the World Cup. Yes. When we were there, we saw a match against Japan and against Arabia Saudi. The national team, I think that most of the players are Dutch, not Indonesian.
Okay. I actually heard about that recently. They're getting a lot of them, like those players, the mixed nationality, dual nationality players to come over.
Yeah. But from our point of view, we believe that in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, these players that we're working with, they can improve a lot and become professional players and even playing on the national team. Because they are good ones, but they need good coaches to be training with them and also trying to improve game understanding and perception.
Obviously, they want to make the players better, but what is kind of the overall goal?
Yeah, no, the goal is trying to develop football in the country. Yes, and they really believe, and we also believe that you need to start from below. Yes, it hasn't got any sense to take the 24 players on the national team and trying to improve their performance, which is
Yeah.
also okay. But we believe, and they believe, that we need to focus on the under 16, under 14, under 12. Yes, so that's the main focus that they have. Then also, if they can have one of these players coming to play in Europe, that would be amazing. Because
Mm-hmm.
yes, they are losing this player of being playing in Indonesian league, but they have a successful case. One Indonesia
Yep.
player go abroad and is playing in France second division or in Spanish second division, whatever. So that's also one of the ideas. Trying to get not now, but maybe in 2, 3 years, one of these players traveling around and playing in Europe.
Absolutely. And from what you saw, what, like, obviously the standard academy situation in Spain, for example, in UK and most like developed football nations, they'll have academies and players as young as definitely 8 years old, 9 years old. Like when I was in Argentina with some of those clubs, they have like under sevens, so at 6 years old, 5 years old, they're doing identification of players. What did you notice in general in Indonesia? Because my perception and my experience in Southeast Asia is that youth academy piece is usually missing. It's like there's usually a big gap it's difficult to create the infrastructure, right, for players to get a lot of consistent games, tournaments, get the quality coaching at young ages. So it's almost like they kind of somehow, some of the better players make their way to under 17s or 18s when it's like more realistic to go to a professional level. But what have you seen from that structure and from that grassroots infrastructure within Indonesia?
Mhm. First of all, we saw that there is a big gap between if you are less of 12 years old, under 12 and up to that, right? Uh, Most of the clubs, they have like a grassroots academy, under 9, under
Okay,
10 academy, but it's more social academy, having like 60 players with one coach, just being them, having
gotcha.
fun, not with this vision of trying to develop this place. It's more social,
Okay,
which is also okay. Kids, they need to have fun as well, yes, but it's a big gap between these ones. Then when they are under 13, under 14, they are coming to the academies of the clubs, and here, yes, they have these more professional training sessions, and they
cool.
are on the pathway to go to the first team. But then we also realized that Indonesia, even though being a huge country and having a lot of clubs of different regions, uh, the young players are moving a lot. So maybe you are 15 years old and you are from Surabaya, and Borneo FC is calling you, and you are going there to play. And then you are 16, and Persia Jakarta is calling you, and you're going there once again. So I think that they don't have this sense of belonging, to a team.
Hmm.
Maybe here in Spain, it can be different, right? You are 14, 15 years old, you are playing in Real Sociedad, um, Rayo Vallecano is calling you, and you are not going there because you have this sense of belonging, right?
Yeah,
There in Indonesia is quite different. So this can be also good as well. But we believe that if you want to create identity, as we said before, right, you also
yeah,
need to take care about
absolutely.
your players. Yes.
Hmm.
So why this player is moving to another team?
I'm curious how that, like, and of course it's case by case, but I know, for example, a project that did conclude a few years ago was one you did with the FA in Thailand, right? How does it go a little bit differently with an official national federation versus like a club, and obviously the specifics might be different, but what are some of those goals and that vision that a national FA might come to Soccer Services with? Did I lose you?
Andrew, sorry,
Okay, now you're
are
back.
you there,
Yeah,
Andrew?
sorry, I might have frozen. Yep, now I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
me now?
Yeah, sorry. So you were
Okay,
talking
cool.
about the
All good.
differences between Thailand FA and
Yeah, so just
yeah.
yeah, so and I'll repeat my question again so I can edit it and then
Sorry.
then cut out here. So no worries. But yeah, so it's interesting that the league is having that project and has brought you in. How does the project look when it's with a national FA, with a national organization versus a specific club or with a league?
Well, talking about our experience with Thailand FA, yes, you know very well that we were working there for 4 or 5 years as a technical director. Carlos was there as a technical director of Thailand. So that's a very huge project because you are in charge of all the football projects in the country. You can do whatever
Hmm.
you want, and this is good
Wow.
for us. Okay. So there in Thailand, we were in charge of all the coaches' education, all the club licenses, all the how to organize the leagues, and also the grassroots national teams. Yes. So of course, these projects, it's a big challenge. Yes, but after 4 or 5 years, we really believe that we did a super good job there in Thailand. Of course, thanks to Carles. Yes, because when we arrived to Thailand, the football there was quite a mess. Maybe the leagues weren't well organized. The
Hmm.
clubs hadn't got any licenses, or the coaching educations were so. So we took these years to organize everything. Yes, and nowadays Thailand football in general is much better as we saw in 4 years ago. So the challenge is bigger, but you are also in charge of almost everything. So
Hmm.
it's easier for us to work because we don't need to ask permission to anything, right?
Yeah, of course.
In the end, it's just creating a strategy and following it, and trying to develop the football in the country, in the whole country.
Yeah. And do you think that in that scenario on a national level, it is a really exciting type of project to say, hey, you get to have free decision making and reign over like an entire country's pathway. Do you think that in this case you worked with Thailand, of course, if you had to do a project in, I don't know, let's say like Paraguay, for example, or even like San Marino or Uzbekistan, do you think that those projects would pretty much look the same, or would there be differences based on the different cultural and footballing and financial factors within that country?
They will have some things that's going to be the same, the lack of organization, the lack of coaching education and so on. But then you also need to think on the population of the countries. Thailand, we were also very focused on working with the grassroots, right? Trying to develop grassroots in Thailand. And it was crazy because maybe we were doing a clinic in Bangkok and we had like 1,000 players coming to train with us. Yes.
Yeah.
If you're going to San Marino, it's going to be easier to work with the grassroots because there's not going to be a lot of clubs, there's not going to be a lot of players, right? But the 3-4 main projects or main areas, probably they will be quite similar, right? The lack of organization, the lack of education, and so on.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because when we talk about different approaches to changing a country, it's something I think about a lot being from the United States, because being on the inside, I've seen the growth and the changes that have happened. And even like you're working with Bethesda and MLS Next, that's a relatively new organization, a new league that wasn't around when I was playing even like 20 years ago, right? So we've seen many changes. We've seen MLS grow, and way back in the day, we had still football. Like football has been in the United States, but it's just been kind of goes up and down and all around. It's like a roller coaster ride. And now we've had the most sustainable type of part of the journey, I guess you could say, over the last 30 years or so. But I think it's always such a fascinating thing. For example, I talk to friends in Ghana right now. Like Ghana, typically one of the strongest countries in Africa, they didn't even qualify for the Cup of Nations this year, right? It's like a national disaster, right? What needs to happen there? You guys did the project in Thailand. Now you're working with Indonesia. I think it's really fascinating to think about all the different elements, all the different factors that affect football in a country, and think, okay, where do we start? What needs to change?
Yeah. Then also here with the FAs, because the people is only seeing the peak of the iceberg, right? And this is the performance of the national teams, okay?
Yeah.
If Thailand is qualifying of the World Cup or not, or if Ghana is qualifying or is winning the African Cup or not. But then below the sea level of the iceberg, there are a lot of things that you need to work on. Yes. And this is what we were doing in Thailand. Yes. Working on, as I said, club licenses, coaching education, grassroots, women's football, everything. And once that you are working on this, hopefully the peak of the iceberg is going to be successful as well, right?
Exactly.
But in my point of view, we are very unfair when we see the US national team, for example, that is not winning the CONMEBOL, or is not winning or even qualifying to the World Cup, or it's not performing well on the World Cup. But as far as I know, the work that is doing the USFA, working with grassroots leagues and so on, it's amazing. It's amazing. So hopefully, then of course the national team performance is going to be improving as well. But we also need to think on all these things that there are a lot that they are not they are below the sea level,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think the interesting place where, I run a soccer school in the US of doing a lot of technical skills training, because that's an area that I see that kids don't get it. They're not learning at home. They're not really watching football. They might not even be learning things from their coaches. They're not playing enough. So it's like, okay, one way to do that is to have this football school and be able to give extra training.
Mm-hmm.
Players have to pay for that, right? In the US, I know we have a big issue. Everyone talks about our system of like paying to play because it's expensive. Have you seen that same issue in Thailand and Indonesia, or does it seem more like more accessible, more affordable, like easier to find football. Because I know that at least for competitive football in the United States, that's something that we've been discussing for a long time, and I think we'll continue to, because it tends to limit some opportunities for sure.
Not in Asia, to be honest. Luckily, in Indonesia and in Thailand as well, if you want to play football, you can play, and the clubs will bet in you and will invite you to be on the academies and will support you if you're a good football player. They will host you on the residencies. They will trust in you, and you don't need to invest that kind of money. That it's also happening in Chile as well. It was in Chile, for several months, and the
Okay.
situation was quite similar. You arrive to one age group that you need to decide or keep on investing in yourself and putting money to go and try to be a professional football player, or you need to work, you know. So in Indonesia, luckily, clubs are not investing, but they are trusting on the processes of the players. So you don't need to put money to play football.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I know that's something that is, fortunately, it has developed with having the MLS academies now. Like even 15 years ago, 10 years ago, like not all of the MLS clubs even had their own academy. They were relying on university players or just signing free agents and players on frees. But at least now those clubs, and even a lot of the level that Bethesda SC is in and MLS Next, there's a lot of scholarships. Even your small grassroots club do have scholarships, but it's like, are we able to kind of meet the demand or the need? My hope as well is that with the World Cup coming to the U.S. in 2 years, that support and interest even continues to grow too, and we get more kids who would normally be playing American football or basketball or baseball that want to kick a soccer ball, because hopefully, Christian Pulisic or Weston McKennie or someone like that does something incredible and has a landmark moment for American football history. So, but yeah, I think that's something we are certainly working out and trying to wrestle with. But I think it's so cool, the kind of the model that you've got with Soccer Services of, you can impact the individual players by providing coaches. You can impact the coaches by giving coach educators, technical directors, but then you also have the ability and the expertise and the background to work with the club leadership. And so it's kind of like a top down, and you guys can fit into so many places within improving players and improving clubs, which I think is really cool. What's been one of like a moment, like maybe a specific moment, like you were somewhere and you just had like this moment of clarity, or you were like, maybe it was after a long project and you're like, wow, I can't believe we trusted the process and the process actually did something. Like what's a really proud, like clear moment for you so far over these past 6 years of helping Soccer Services spread that econo method around the world?
For me personally, was this project in Indonesia, because we reached agreement with La Liga thanks to one partner that we have, an Indonesian partner that I met 4 years ago. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So we met face to face in Jakarta a long time ago. We had a discussion about Econo. He also listened about us in the World Football Summit, this football congress as well. So he started loving the Econo method, how we see football, how we develop, game understanding. We do a lot of questions during our trainings, and he loved it. So we kept in touch. Yes. Then the COVID situation arrived. We did some collaboration together, but it was a long process. We both trust on the process, and in the end, 4 years later, he called me. Aitor, you need to come to Jakarta because we have a big project coming on. I want you to be part of this project. And here we are, 4 years ago with one of the biggest projects of the company. And that's because of we both trust on the process.
Yeah, super cool, man. So it's an exciting time then. It's a very fresh a mini win, right? But now you guys have the hard work to do. Now you actually have to go and do it, but it's amazing that you got the opportunity.
Yes, that's why I think, and it's a good advice, that you need to take care about your network, and keep in touch with everyone. I have a lot of people contact me on LinkedIn, and you never know, because
yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. Amazing, man. Cool. Well, Aitor, this has been awesome. I think it's really cool. I personally originally found out about the Econo method, it was easily 5 years. I think it was during COVID, honestly, just going around, and obviously with my connection to Thailand, always keep an eye on football there. And I was like, what's this? I saw something on their website or something like that, and I'd heard about it. And then you and I got connected by a mutual friend earlier this year, and it was really cool that came around. So yeah, the network there of football, it's amazing. So the way that we finish every one of these episodes with all of our guests is I'm going to ask you to finish the sentence, because football.
Because football can change the way of seeing the world. For me, football, I told you before, it was my dream working in football. I trusted the process, and nowadays I'm working in football. So hopefully, and this is our company vision as well, we're working in football to change the world, yes, to become a better world, because football also have a lot of values.
Absolutely.
So that's one of our visions as well.
Whether it's what you've experienced on the pitch and what you take into your personal life of dealing with challenges and difficulties, or it's just kind of learning about people and communicating. I think that's another thing I really like of what you're doing with the Econo method, is it's so global and you're able to kind of make it work in different cultures and places. It's really cool. And that's something that's a big reason I love football, is that global aspect, how it's able to connect people from different places and cultures. So awesome, man. Well, Aitor, thank you so much, man. This was a great episode. We appreciate your time and sharing your personal story and that of Soccer Services and the Econo method as well. We wish you guys a lot of luck for your project in Indonesia, and hopefully we'll check in 3 years and we'll be able to review and look back and see how everything went.
Thank you, Andrew. And you and me, Andrew, we need to meet face to face somewhere in the world.
100%, 100%, man.
And keep on discussing football.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I look forward to see what you guys are doing in the US too, because there's room for a lot of different types of solutions and work to develop the game there. So definitely would love to have you guys make an impact too. So we're definitely going to put Aitor's information, his LinkedIn in a description, that of Soccer Services and their website. I mean, as soon as you go on the website, you see all the logos of all the badges of all the different clubs and organizations they work with. It's really impressive. So definitely recommend checking that out, and maybe you guys can work together in the future. But thank you all for watching, for listening on whatever platform you're at. We appreciate it, and we will see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you, guys. Muchas gracias.